Hello and welcome back for another podcast episode of Aceto Magazine. My name is Emre Şentürk and today I'm going to talk about Donald Trump. So let's get started. Donald Trump is certainly a magnet of attention. Yeah? Not only as a businessman for the last couple of decades, but also as a politician for his one year term in the United States and also beyond that. Lots of controversies, split opinions on his persona, but also his policy making basically. He is a polarizing figure, or at least media made him a polarizing figure. I don't think that he has character traits that make him polarizing or kind of special in any sense. But in the end, he became a very polarizing figure through different media campaigns, positive and negative. On the one hand, the proponents of Donald Trump praise him for his direct approach to politics. Famously, when he called out Hillary Clinton in front of everybody, saying that he is actually enjoying the same tax breaks as her donors, and this is why she wouldn't change the tax code, which I think is a pretty valid argument and also a very genuine approach to how things are working. Very transparent. On the other hand, his stance towards minority groups as well as immigration policies, foreign policy, another important factor, although I have to say his foreign policy record was outstanding. He ended basically 3 wars and saved the United States a lot of money with ending those conflicts, as well as when he left, there was some sort of political vacuum in the international sphere, but we'll come to that later. This just try to finish the introduction, but he's a very controversial character for many people and for media. He attracts media attention, and last Thursday he was indicted as the first former president of the USA who is going to face criminal prosecution in this country. So it is a very interesting development because they try to prosecute him for various reasons. This might be minority rights related aspects, but also when he left office and his supporters stormed the parliament and so on and so forth. Afterwards, they wanted to attach some sort of Russians backing his election. And I think there was also some kind of documentation thingy going on where they tried to prosecute him legally. But now he's facing criminal charges. Nobody knows exactly why. We will find out on Tuesday, actually, because that is when he's going to appear at court. So very interesting what is going to happen afterwards and how this is going to where this is going to lead us. But in this analysis or in this episode, I want to talk about why this development actually doesn't mean anything. It was predictable and nothing is going to come out of it. Nothing meaningful in the end. And even if it does, the reaction towards it is not going to be very meaningful. I think this is a calculated action by the opposition, and finally they kind of got him. I'm not quite sure if he's going to face jail time, but I don't think so. And I think this is just a huge media stunt in order to harm him and prevent his next presidency, because as things stand right now in the United States, it is going to be very difficult for the Democrats to have a meaningful character running for this position. So how do I come to this assessment? It is the approach that I always had with all my political analyses. Whenever I analyze a political event, a phenomenon, a development, whatever, I first obviously look at the actors involved and then what the goals the most obvious goals of those actors could be. And then I look at the underlying goals of those actors. And obviously, in this case, we have Donald Trump and his opposition, and also his supporters. So we have basically three actors, or let's say two actors. And if we don't want to split Donald Trump and his supporters and just kind of unify them as seeing them as one actor, and on the other side the opposition, the Democratic Party. We have those two actors, and now we have to look at the different objectives that try to achieve. As we have seen in the last couple of years during the presidency of Joe Biden, there has been a growing dissatisfaction, obviously, with the Republicans, as they saw a power vacuum emerging in the United States, not only globally but also internally, domestically, because there we could see that the stock market plummeted in the last 1.5 years. The economy stagnated. Also, fiscal policy was not very successful. Janet Yellen, the finance minister of the USA, actually made a grave mistake by putting too much value on full employment and kind of leaving the inflation aspect a bit in the periphery. Also a move that was actually predictable, because she has a track record back from the 90s that is kind of inflation friendly, and finally she was able to implement this under the regime of Joe Biden. So there has been a kind of a power vacuum, but to kind of also, and if we want to extend it and look at the societal developments with all this kind of sexual preference movements that are kind of developing in the United States at a rapid rate, with all sorts of different personal, romantic or erotic orientations that kind of emerged there and being promoted by the liberal government. There has been kind of a vacuum, and in order to counter that, the Republican Party does not have a very strong or successful candidate. The one they can always go back to is Donald Trump. He was very popular because he was very unorthodox with a lot of things that he did. Not necessarily a great politician, but he certainly approached politics with some sort of a business lens. And as I just mentioned, he ended 3 wars, not because he's such a pacifist, but rather he sees it from a business perspective and says blood is expensive, He also has a very fair stance, to be honest, and he's not pulling the United States out of criticism. At various points, he also said that American presidents were very bloody and waged wars all over the world. They're not so innocent. If I have to quote him in the end. As I said, not very skilled politician, but very charismatic with these kind of populist argumentations. And, populism, as you might have noticed, is something that always works with the masses. So if this is the objective of the Republican Party, they saw that certain things after Donald Trump didn't go so well for the USA, actually put the country into a socio-economic recession. And this was the exact opposite when Donald Trump was president, so they have a very strong case to put him, or to kind of propose him as next candidate for presidency, right? So this is a very clear objective by the Republican Party. On the other hand, obviously, the Democratic Party doesn't want that. They don't want Donald Trump back. They don't want to kind of lose the power that they gained after his one term of as president of the USA. But in this special case, it is not just about not wanting the opposition to gain power. The problem with Donald Trump is that this person, and he already said it, and it is always very difficult to kind of lean on statements that politicians made and fully trust them, because there's always kind of an interest or an underlying motive behind that. But in this case, it is quite clear he doesn't need any money. He doesn't need any money. He's not something who's reliant on other people's money in order to have a standing in the elitist or oligarchic order of the United States political system. And this is very dangerous because you have a fragile balance of people who are dependent on money. As we can see, for example, Janet Yellen, she is a very well paid speaker of many hedge funds in the United States. And obviously Hillary Clinton, being a politician all her life, can easily in a $50,000 Armani suit talk to people about inequality, which she kind of, if you're a politician, you should not be really able to finance those kind of luxurious goods. And obviously this is all money that comes from interest groups. They're very big donors behind those politicians, and this is not just for the Democratic Party but also for the Republican Party. They want to support them because when you have the money, you also get kind of not only the confidence and the tools to kind of move things around, but also you get a policy direction because you know where this money is coming from. You gotta make them happy because the money needs to flow. It needs to keep coming. And therefore, Donald Trump is he's also a reliability for the Republican Party, to be honest. It's not like he's a very safe guy for the Republicans either. Because he's so independent, they're not very happy with him too, but he has a great track record of 4 years efficient policy making in most terms. And now, he's the only option or only viable option for the Republican Party to put in place for the next election. And the Democrats know that. They know that. And because he has such an advantage over all the other candidates in the cadre of the Democratic Party, they need to pull Donald Trump out of this whole situation before that he can run for presidency the next time. And this is the most obvious goal that they achieve or want to achieve. And this is why they always try to prosecute him. They always try to put him in jail for various things. And now, although we don't know exactly what he's being charged for, the problem is that he is most likely going to be charged because of hush payments to certain people he had a romantic relationship with while he was married. Obviously, this is something they always put into those discussions. But this is a very, very, very weak point. And on the other hand, a very strong point for Donald Trump. Why is that so? There were times, obviously, maybe 100 years ago or so, where loyalty towards the partner was valued greatly. Obviously, it is also still valued in many countries, but not so much in the United States of America, at least what we know from all the cultural goods that this country is exporting to the world. I mean, in a country where all the erotic orientations become so overwhelming, where polygamy is basically a common state of having affairs with people, it is very hard to argue that having an affair while being married as a president is going to be harmful in this situation. It's going to damage your reputation. And then paying hush money to those people, who are involved in this situation. I mean, this is not a very strong case in contemporary socio-economic or socio-cultural environment that we are in, or that the Americans are in. So it begs the question, is this just a media stunt or not? I think yes, it is, because if that is really the basis on which he's going to face those charges, it is going to be very difficult for him to put him in jail, but also to keep him there, because today there are far worse things that are happening and that are culturally and socially became unacceptable, then these things, not to say that this is right, obviously it is not. And as I said, in many countries it still remains a very bad thing to kind of break this loyalty bond to your partner, obviously, but not in the United States. Nobody is going to believe that. And then again, this triggers, and if this is a media stunt, you know what this triggers? This triggers the following. Those people who are against the indictment of Donald Trump, they're going to say, what about Bush? What about Clinton? What about Obama? What about I can basically name all the presidents of the United States and talk about why they weren't facing criminal charges in their own country. All war criminals, all of them. And I make no exception, because all of them were involved in large-scale wars, and obviously were responsible for millions of deaths in the Middle East, Vietnam, Africa, Latin America. I mean, Latin America is still suffering from all the decisions that the United States made, decades ago. And this is where media actually wants us to go with these kind of discourses. Because once you start saying, okay, well, the reason why he's appearing in front of court don't seem to be too bad. He cheated on his ex-wife. And on the other side, we have, war criminals. Basically, if we think about all the things that happened in Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib and the whole Iraq operation, seems off. But this is where media wants to get us, because once we start to talk about George Bush did this, and he did this, and he did this, we are basically putting ourselves in a situation where we are distracted from the real discourse. And the real discourse is, why are the power dynamics in this country so important to certain interest groups? I mean, Donald Trump was the one who had the economic situation bringing it to another level. Yeah, he brought the whole stock market to another level during his presidency. What is it that those interest groups, what do they pursue basically? I mean, if these are multinational corporations who are pulling the strings, basically, what all this popular conspiracy theorists say, if these are multinational corporations, why don't they want Donald Trump back in presidency? Because he was the one who boosted the stock market. You see, therefore, and this is the next point of the political analysis, we looked at the most obvious objectives, but now we have to look at the underlying objectives. Because they want him out. The opposition wants Donald Trump out. All right, we got that. The Republicans want Donald Trump in. Okay, we got that. But if the underlying assumption is that Donald Trump is a bad president and is not serving the interests of businesses, even though he reduced corporate tax and made a lot of arrangements for the stock market to flourish, then the donors who are basically providing the Democratic Party with money, but also the Republican Party, they do not have material interests. Think about that. They do not have material interests. And then, if we think about the discourse that he cheated on his ex-wife and he's facing a prosecution because of that, this triggers a very illogical discussion between the proponents of Donald Trump and the opposition, right? And then basically you're opening a new discussion about why cheating is bad, while far worse things are happening behind those walls. And what I mean by that is the following. As we all know, there was this human trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein, who basically provided all the elites in the United States, but also internationally, with underage children. And I don't want to go into the details, but I mean, there were happening very bad things, rape and everything. And also Donald Trump had contact with this Jeffrey Epstein, who, basically was the biggest human trafficker in the world, because he was providing the elitist circuits with children. And then obviously he was, and this is what they found out later before he died, is that he was actually an agent of the Mossad, and the Mossad actually wanted to do that in order to have, kind of blackmailing material against politicians and other elitist people in the business world. Donald Trump was part of it. He is not only a cheater, but far worse. Knowing that, and still putting him in, or trying to put him in jail for those reasons that they, for the hush money payments and so on and so forth, shows you that this is not the thing that that is actually going on between the opposition and Donald Trump, because he did far worse things. He cannot say that, and they cannot prosecute them for this, because they did the same things, and there's kind of this silent mutual understanding between those two parties not to talk about these things, obviously. Why do you think Jeffrey Epstein was basically killed in prison? Obviously, he hung himself, but who believes this? And this is the point. Distraction, some sort of distracting story, some little things about prosecution and whatnot, kind of hush money case, and then keep people busy with talking about these things, while he did far worse things. And this is how they want to put reputational pressure, even more so on Donald Trump, to prevent him to run for president the next time, right? And therefore, my suggestion is not to listen to this case, not to pay too much attention on it, but also to look elsewhere what is happening in the world, but also in the United States. Because obviously, this is not an incident that they pick such a soft case where it's very likely that he's not going to be put in jail for, where there's going to be a flourishing discussion about why don't we prosecute war criminals, and this keeps people busy for a couple of weeks. And this is a signal for you to look elsewhere for other important developments. I haven't found them, I haven't looked at them, but in my opinion, this is just a media operation to distract the masses from what is really going on. And because there's no logical ground to kind of put much energy and effort in dealing with this whole situation and following the news about what is going on. If he's going to be charged for something far worse than just cheating on his ex-wife, okay, then obviously there is some flesh to this whole story. I can understand that. But as things stand right now, I think this is just a poor operation to distract both camps, not only the Democratic camp, but also the Republican camp, from other developments that I still, or that I have yet to figure out what they are, because he did far worse things. Other presidents did far worse things. It happens at a time where there's already a power vacuum, has been created by Joe Biden, and there's kind of an uncertainty of the Democratic Party whether they're going to be strong enough in the upcoming elections. It happens at a time where China bashing is on an all-time high, and it happens at a time where Israel is in turmoil, where Ukraine is in turmoil. It happens at a time where Europe is very weak, and we're just exited or left the corona pandemic times behind us. So it is a very fragile situation, and it kind of adds to the anxiety, or the popular anxiety that is already very prevalent across the globe, basically. economic downturn, and so on and so forth. So there must be a certain thing that those groups that kind of attack Donald Trump now wants us not to look at. And obviously, if we enter the discussion into, why didn't we prosecute George Bush and Obama and so on and so forth, this keeps us too busy. Just leave it. I mean, this is all calculated. And in my opinion, media just wants you to talk about these things and how unfair it is and why this and why that. Don't think about it. This is just a stunt. In a couple of months, we're not going to talk about it, given that the charges are made on the grounds that I just said and based on the speculations that are around. Very interesting development, nonetheless. Very interesting topic. If you are from the USA, I would love to read your comments on this, because I'm talking from an outside perspective and obviously with limited information that I just kind of read from the news and do from or get from my own research. So I'm very curious about what you're going to say. So comment or write me an email, whatever. Would be great to enter into this discussion and have this dialogue. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you stay away from this toxic media stunt. And even more so, I hope to have you back for the next episode of Esido Podcast. My name is Emre Şentürk. Thank you for listening, and until next time, bye.